right. Hello,
We're on
everybody, and welcome
episode 4.
episode 4 of the Yeasayers podcast, where we say yes to success, where we talk about different books and things, and relate it to our lives. Make it a little introspective. And so, as
They're a
always,
lot
I'm joined.
introspective sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting off like with the whole germophobia thing. So, like, why not get it
We
going?
are.
But as
Yeah.
always, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Priya. Priya, how are you?
Hello. I'm doing well. Got a little cold. I don't think it's COVID, so you're safe.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that like halfway around the world, it'll travel through this microphone and just hit me.
Ah,
If I wake up tomorrow morning sick, I'm gonna blame it on you. I hope you know that. My
you
roommate's been
should.
sick
You
all week, but I'm
should.
gonna blame it on you.
You should. So, for those of you who don't remember, Alex is in Germany, Berlin, and I
I
am
am.
on the West Coast in San Francisco, California.
So quite a bit away. So hopefully
The
the
germs
disease
travel
like goes.
far.
They do. They do. It's like light waves. They take a while, but they'll get there. I don't know. Anyways, today we're talking about the book "I'm Glad My Mom Died" by Jennette McCurdy. It's a. Do you wanna talk a little bit about what this book is? Do you have a nice little description in mind for how we can idealize this book?
Sure. I know you brought it to our attention, so I didn't really know that she had written a book or that had become a writer. But I knew of her. Jennette McCurdy acted in iCarly and Sam and Cat. Having two younger siblings, I was very familiar with those and more shows. Even though I was a lot older when they came out, um, and uh, and yeah, so she wrote this memoir. Sort of, to me it feels like, it feels like, oh, this word is coming up for me because it's mentioned so many times in the book, but the act of writing it feels like an emotional purge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she does use that a
um
lot, doesn't she? Yeah.
yeah. But it's a book about her life and how she got into acting, and the relationship that she had with her mom and the role that that played in her life as she grew up. I normally don't like listening to audiobooks, but in this instance, I did listen to the audiobook, and I think I got so much from listening to the audio for this because we were talking about this the other day. The way that she narrates her book is it's very engaging. I would say
Yeah.
it
I
really
like the fact
like,
that
yeah.
yeah,
Go
I like
ahead.
the fact that it's what did I write here? I wrote it. It's I'm not gonna find it. I'll wait on that, but I'll try to muscle my way through this. Um, but I like the way that like how she presents her feelings at each part of the book is how she felt in that time. There's no part that, or there's not a lot of parts within it where it like kind of shows you that it's still her today telling this story. It's like no, like the comments she's making and the things that she's thinking are exactly how she was thinking them to the best of her ability at that point in her life. So the whole time when her mom's saying things to her and she's just agreeing with them, it's very unsettling to how much she agreed with a lot of this that happened.
I would say I'm very impressed with her ability to remember that. Like, if you ask me and how I felt in a particular moment 10 years ago or when I was 6, granted, I'm a lot older than she is, but still,
Mhm.
even 10 years ago, it would take me a long time to reacquaint myself with how I felt then.
Mhm.
So it's very impressive that she was able to go back and really it seems like very realistically portray an accurate description of not only the facts, which again, I would not be able to remember all of those kinds of facts. She remembers, and I'm sure that some of it she went back and she's like, okay, this is the gist of it. Like, here's what I'm going to
Fill in the
write to
pieces.
represent that, right?
Yeah.
But still, she remembers a lot about everything growing up,
Mhm.
which is in and of itself to me very impressive.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that she had to continuously be monitoring her mom in her emotions and keep track of like everything that she feels and how she feels in certain ways. Her ability to remember certain scenarios and certain groupings of like motions or whatever
Mm,
and emotions allowed her to kind of fill in that, like have that memory to like, because like a lot of it is a lot of trauma induced need to remember things, she needed to know that if her mom looked at her dad a certain way, she was going to like this certain thing would happen. So like and she would have to remember what way she could diffuse the situation, which granted was not her responsibility, but in the time she definitely felt it was. So it was very important to her. So I wonder if that like also plays into if we want to go into it a little bit of like her career. She has to memorize lines. Like, and it always impressed me when she talked about how she could memorize lines in like 15, 20
yeah,
minutes. That is
yeah,
ridiculous. I could never.
yeah.
So like I wonder if that plays a part in it, you know?
Yeah, her memory is just really good. And I wanted to actually, use what you just said as a segue into our conversation because this has to do with something that we've talked about. I have a feeling that we both resonate with different, with the book in our own ways. And I remember you had mentioned a while back that growing up, you had to kind of constantly be monitoring the relationship between your parents, for instance,
Yeah.
and at any moment, something that was stated in the wrong way could be taken at the wrong way, could be taken as taking a side, and then it would kind of blow up like a fuse.
Mhm.
So I was wondering if that's something that you resonated with, especially reading on in sort of the earlier portions or listening to the earlier portions of the book where she talks about that constant monitoring, how her mom was reacting, what she was saying, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't to the same extent as she had, and that's kind of the idea. Because I did resonate a little bit with it. I was like, ah, I know that feeling of
Mhm.
like just being conscious of like how your parents are acting or how one of your parents are acting, just to see what you have to do in that situation. Thankfully, I didn't have to step in at the age that she did, or I wasn't like didn't feel like I had to step in. It was more of just a passive thing where if I do a certain thing, an outcome would happen, but it's not that I have to go in and solve it. Which is where I do not envy her whatsoever. Feeling that need to go in and solve the problem as a 6-year old, it's just like that's not cool at all. Um, but no, I get that. It's definitely a
And
thing
do
that
you think
allows
she
you.
was did it feel like she was asked to solve the problem, or is she just sort of she kind of like strikes me as a she is very ambitious, I feel like, in terms of her, like, even later on in the book, she talks about how she was given those worksheets to deal with her eating disorder, and she loved studying those. But she strikes me as somebody who tries to fix things if she notices a problem, like, tries to, whatever she is capable of doing in the moment, even as a 6-year old. So, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like she was sort of asked to step in, or is that maybe that's sort of a part of her personality?
My first thought is, it might have been brought on because, like, you don't grow up like just knowing that, because like if
Yeah.
that's the case, everybody would be like that. Everybody would
Mm,
be feel the need to step in and do stuff. I think a lot of it may have had to do with her mom treating her the way that she did in the importance that she had and giving her that early sense of importance on her mom's emotions, saying that she is her best friend, saying that like
yeah.
she's happy when she's happy or whatever. So I think creating that environment really made her feel like she was responsible for her mom. Her mom kind of put it on that like she's kind of the parental figure and like the reason that like Jeanette is the reason her mom is happy to some extent.
Hmm.
So putting that pressure on a child, and that's the only thing that they've grown up knowing, and their parents are supposed to be the ones that know all and know best. She's gonna just move through that, and she didn't have any other figures around her that would combat that. Dad was not gonna pick that fight. and grandparents were also just kind of there passively making comments on the side, knowing that they also could, like, the problem is like I had with the a lot of that is they obviously saw that there was something going on and they took no initiative to fix that, and I didn't like that. um I like the fact that they still had their own interpersonal connections to it, like grandfather, by all means. Like there's a that time when she's remembering lines on the front yard. That's a
Mhm.
sweet little interaction where he kind of brings light to the situation and goes, "Hey, this isn't cool."
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's not doing anything about it.
Right.
Possibly also because grandmother was insane. So maybe he's just kind of dealt with this for so long that he also feels beaten down and not able to, like, it's not worth it, because either way they'll manipulate their way around what you're saying, so it's not even worth trying to fight it. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that, at least, or if that was a complete thought.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I also wanted to take it back to, I think last time we covered Anthony Bourdain and we talked about um, just being very raw and
Hmm.
open
Hmm.
about what it's been like over the course of one's life. And this is a great example of that. I just wanted to say that in case I forget, but I was thinking about this yesterday and just how, like, it takes so much guts to be able to go public with this kind of thing, which
Yeah.
is why, again, I feel like it feels to me like something that she probably felt like she had to do. And it just sort of came out from within, like all of this stuff that she was holding in for that long. And to be able to, she mentions at some point, it's when her mother is in the hospital and she brings her mother the screenplay that she's written, and
Yep.
she really enjoyed writing it. But of course her mother didn't, want her to be a writer. She wanted her to be an actress.
Yeah.
um, and so she mentions how much she enjoyed the writing process compared to acting, which it kind of seems like from the beginning she pretty much hated.
Yes.
um, and so I can only imagine sort of her, coming to terms with all of this stuff in her life and then feeling that urge to write it in a form that makes her feel like her, like she's pouring out her heart and soul into this creation, which is more along the lines of something that she is for her rather than acting. So I think that's very interesting, and I can totally see how that sort of makes sense that she would write about this.
Yeah, but a little side note that I'd like to put and kind of talk
Mm.
about a little bit as well is like this. I don't know if you felt the same way, but after getting about an hour or two into this book, I'm like, this book is not for the lighthearted, to some extent. Like, there's
No,
a lot
no.
of this that is very heavy and very emotionally manipulative. And if anybody has any connections to this that are like I hate the word, but like triggering to you, it could really fuck with some people.
Yeah, I pulled up my journal because I literally wrote about that today.
Hmm.
Um, I said, okay, I said recording in a bit on Jennette McCurdy. It was a heavy read or listen, engaging but heavy.
Very
I
heavy. It
felt
really
this.
was.
I felt the same way. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not for the lighthearted. And for me personally, I did resonate with a lot of it. In some ways, her mom was like an extreme version of the Asian tiger parent,
Okay.
which is kind of what I grew up with.
Sure.
And so I grew up in a very, very controlling environment, where I had to do what I was told kind of like perfectly. Otherwise, I was kind of like worthless. And
Yeah.
so it's something that I'm still coming to terms with. And actually, my last coaching session was about that, um, about about I don't want to say getting rid, but it kind of is like getting rid of the other voices in my head that tell me that everything that I instinctively want is wrong,
Mhm.
because I didn't grow up ever, being encouraged to think about what I want. It was
Yeah.
always about what's expected and doing what's expected of me well. And if I didn't, then I felt guilty for not doing well at the thing that I was told to do.
Now, I got a
Um,
question about that if you don't mind.
yeah,
Now, what's the
sure.
difference between having an expectation that is laid out for you rather than what's happening to Jeanette? Do you see that there's like a difference there, or is it a lot of like what are the commonalities and what are the differences between like having somebody emotionally manipulate you in the way that she did? Like her mom was very childish about the way that she would talk to her and kind of like, oh, but like that makes me sad, and then having another child be like, oh, I don't want my mom to be sad, so I guess I'll do it. How does that compare to the expectations of you
It
to
was very similar, except for
was
me, it
it?
was like, I don't want my dad to be angry, so I'm gonna do it.
Okay. All right. So it's a little bit more of an aggressive touch than the backhanded
Yeah.
manipulation.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced sort of like the the guilting in terms of, words used.
Sure.
But also if you come from I think a lot of like non-white households also, you get spanked or you get hit. Like I had my share of that too. So,
I got spanked.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but an example is like, how is it, you asked, how is it different? So that would be a difference. And I think the difference also is that for me, more of the, I always was in a very hyper controlled environment, meaning like I wasn't allowed to go outside by myself. Kind of like she talks
Gotcha.
about that.
Yeah.
um
Interesting.
yeah, I wasn't, and for her, I think, so her mom had wanted to be an actress, right? And so that's why she wanted Jennette to act, and she put it across as it was Jennette's dream.
Hmm.
I think I mentioned to you that my dad told me to study electrical engineering and that he wouldn't
Hmm.
pay for college unless I did that. It was because he had wanted to study electrical engineering, but he hadn't gotten a chance to.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think that big big difference, two differences, as I was thinking about this too, are that one, when I was like 6, because she starts very early. I think that's
Hmm.
so is very, very early. When I was 6, I still was able to be a child, I would
Yeah.
say, for the most part. Like my parents didn't really care about my grades at all until I was in like 5th grade or 6th grade, and so by that
Yeah.
time, you're a little older,
Hmm.
and then in
Yeah.
high school is when it really started, like, very,
Gotcha.
very, like, "You have to do this, you have to get all A's, otherwise you're an idiot if you don't," and, like, all of
Did you
that
get
type
all
of
A's?
stuff. Yes, I
Yeah.
did.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
but it
that's why
was
you went to
like we
Stanford, right?
yeah, but we've talked about this before. It was like, and I've seen this in her. Oh gosh, it's so interesting because it's like a lot of what we've talked about in the earlier episodes still holds, where in order to be successful, it's a no excuses sort of hustle mentality. So, like for
Yeah.
me, if I had an AP test, I remember this one time I had a test, I had this throbbing ear infection. It was so bad, but I still went in and I still had to take the test, right? Like, and
Hmm.
I remember for her, she had an audition at some point. She talks about how she had such a bad cold
Yeah.
and she was just like drugged up on, stuff in order to make it through the audition. But she was like 8 or something.
Yeah.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about when I was like 16 or like
17. Yeah.
17, right? She
Yeah.
was 8. So I know it was early on. So
Yeah.
that's just
Very early.
ridiculous. Like that kind of pressure that early. But I think it sheds light on what's probably really common for child actors, I feel like, or child performers.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a hint of that at the beginning of the book when she's first going for that audition, and then the producer like kind of went, "Good luck." Like he knew
Yeah.
what was gonna happen, but at the same time, it's just like you can feel that. I don't know. It's just like do something. Tell him to stop. Like take her away. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Adopt this
Yeah.
child.
Yeah. So I feel like this is a very interesting addition to our podcast because it kind of some of the principles that we've learned over the last three episodes we can see within this where it like she there were no excuses, she went in, she did the audition, she like you know practiced like crazy, she worked really hard, she memorized her lines, she was on top of her stuff even as a
Mhm.
child, and her
Mhm.
mom pushed her to do that, right? And so she gained. I mean, she had a big role on a show as a child, and then
Mhm.
another follow-on role, which wasn't exactly what she thought, but she had some level of fame, some level of success. But then that brings me to the question of like, so we're Yeasayers, say yes to success. What is success? In this case, she probably didn't consider she considered herself, she says at the end that she feels like it gave her financial stability and that's
Yeah.
good, but other than
Yeah.
that, it didn't give her anything.
Oh, this book probably set her for life. I'm wondering. Have you seen all the review? Like, there's like thousands and thousands of reviews, and only a percentage of people leave reviews. So I can only imagine how many people bought this book. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Like, good, like kudos to her. I
yeah,
know that's a little bit off topic, but kudos to her on
yeah,
that. But yeah, it is interesting to think about, like, because that's not success in her eyes. My first thought was like, yeah, maybe I'm famous, but it doesn't mean that I'm successful because
yeah.
I
What if
don't
you're
want to be.
unhappy, you're mentally unwell, you're
Yep.
like physically unwell? How is that?
I'm surprised
That's
she lived through how many times she stuck her finger down her throat. Like I can't imagine. Like she had no food in her. She had
and
no
losing a
nutrients.
tooth.
Yeah, dude.
And
Like
I
she
was
was doing it.
imagining how she grew up to be like she was, she was anorexic as a preteen, and you need the nutrition and the food in order to grow up to be an adult
Yeah.
in a
I wonder
healthy
if that's why
way.
she's so
So,
small.
is she though?
Yeah, she's
I don't know.
tiny. She's a short
Hmm.
little girl.
Hmm.
Because her mom was too. Her mom was like 5'1", 5'2"
Well,
or
you think
something.
everybody who's shorter than you is short, I feel
Oh my
like.
god. Well, because
You
I'm
told me
not
you
tall.
told me the
Because
same
I'm not
thing.
tall.
You told
Because
me the
I'm
same
not.
thing, and
Yeah, you are
I heard
short.
you multiple times. I heard you're really little.
I heard you're really tiny.
I'm like 5'4".
I know, that's small. You're t you're
I'm a
small.
child?
I know, that's why I stopped saying it. That's not what I meant at all.
Oh
No,
my god.
I'm just not tall, so anybody that's shorter than me is like, yeah, they're short.
But
So
you're not short though. You're 5'10" and a half or something?
five
No, 5'10"?
nine.
Oh, you're 5'9". Oh, I
Yeah,
thought you said you were
yeah.
5'10".
See, I am short. Yeah,
I
exactly.
think
That
you
one
lied
is
to me last time. I'm pretty
I
sure you
would
said
never lie
5'10".
about my height.
Oh my
Never,
god, the truth comes out
never.
now.
The
So
truth
so
came out.
you feel short, so you call other people short or
Short
tiny.
king, that's me. Yeah.
Well, do you have the you don't have the Tom Cruise complex.
No, I'm not a Scientologist, no.
No.
I'm glad you like
Well,
that.
what if I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that like guys who are but this is not 5'9". This is like if you're a guy
Napoleon.
who's like yeah, 5'6" or 5'7", you'll like overcompensate, right? By like shaking somebody's hand really tight or
Mhm.
you know.
Being a little puffing out your chest a little bit more, feeling you have to prove yourself to the world because God didn't give you the long legs that you wished for or now you wish for.
Yeah, they're trying to be models, America's Next Top Model. That's what I
It's
think of
okay.
when I think of long
Yeah.
legs. The long the long legs.
It's just like a short torso and then just long legs, looking like a giraffe.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Where is this thing?
I
I
have
love
no
it.
idea. Where are we going with this?
Oh my god. But
Anyway,
I
she's short.
did anyway, I feel like I think I told you this the other day that I resonate with a lot in the book, and we were talking about how it's heavy.
Mhm.
Um, I wonder what it would have been like for me to read it maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago when I hadn't done so much work on myself.
Yeah.
Because now, I've done a lot of work on myself. I kind of like recognize things. I'm able to detach from them a little bit, but I wasn't then. But even for me now, like it's not something that I felt immediately, but I think as I did listening session after listening session for this book, it started to kind of register like, oh, this is a heavy listen. Like, this is
Mhm.
actually kind of takes a toll on me every time I listen to it a little bit.
Yeah. I remember talking to the girlfriend, and I was just in a weird mood for a couple days, and I was like,
Oh,
I don't know what this is, but it might be because I'm reading this book and everything is just real. Like the whole time I'm just going, "Oh my god." Like, "Oh my
yeah,
god." Like that this girl is going through all of that, and it's just yeah, it does take a toll a little bit on you. Just like trying to
yeah,
sit through that and be like, "Okay, it gets better, right?" And then it just doesn't, and then you're like, wow. Wow.
yeah.
So
Um, I was so the second big difference for me, because I think you asked me about that earlier, was the whole I think the big piece is the health stuff. So for instance, like growing up, my parents wanted me to be healthy, right? They
sure.
wanted me to eat.
Mhm.
They cared about my health, that I was a healthy individual, a healthy child.
Yeah.
Her mom was obviously the opposite. Like
Yes.
she's the one who taught her anorexia.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's the most dangerous part of the
Yeah.
whole thing, because then that became the tool that she used to cope with the stress of being in that stressful situation that she was in most of the
She's
time.
like, "This is the only thing I can control, so I'm gonna keep controlling it." It's like the same thing as
Yeah.
what we were talking about earlier with, germophobia. When you have that OCD
Mm,
tendency, you
yeah.
you latch on to one thing that you have really a lot of control of, and mine was cleanliness, and hers was the ability to, like, keep control of what she eats, and, at a certain point, she found that she could eat whatever she wanted and gorge herself, and then just put it back up and it's the same result. And it's like, yeah, I don't know where I wanted to go with that, but it's like kind of that. It's I feel like it's that OCD tendency. It's the because that what did her grandfather say that he thought she had?
He said she had OCD.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
So
what he
then there's
said.
that. She's very particular about different things and keeping things in order of like she's just very aware of very certain things. And I like to think of this book kind of whether you went through something like this or not, whether you had some issues with a parent as growing up and it kind of set a certain mindset for you as you move through life or not, I really think that this kind of can also be used as an overall guide of like what the effects of letting other people's opinions and thoughts
Yes.
and suggestions can do to you as a person, whether it be on the grand scale as it is on this, um, or on just any other scale. I really think that you can take that and you can see how it spirals and continues to affect you as you move on because you're still just living for somebody else's motives.
That is so perceptive. And that's exactly sort of I think the deepest thing that I get from this book is almost like this book is an extreme example of what a lot of us kind of maybe go through if we
Mhm.
live much of our lives per the expectations or orders of other people or other
Mhm.
voices.
Mhm.
And it's not easy to be yourself. I
Mm-mm.
feel like, and to own yourself and what you want to do. Again, for me, that's something that just I'm still working on, because I grew up in a very controlled environment. I was always told what to do. Decisions were made for me. I couldn't make them for myself. So I had to like learn later on what it is to learn to listen and understand what it is. I'm still learning, right? Like, what do I want? What do
Yeah.
I want? Like, what do
Yeah.
I like? How can
It's
I do
hard.
more of what? And then how do I follow through with it, knowing that it's going to piss other people off, because it will.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Um,
it's like, but why is it pissing other people off? And that's the question you have to ask. It's like, what legitimate reason does it have to piss somebody else off if you're doing what's happy for you and you can make money and a living off of doing it, you know?
well, so that's where the conditioning comes in. So I think I don't think the why is as important. I think that, like, you'll always piss somebody off, right? If
Mhm.
you, especially once you start to live your life more authentically, the chances of you pissing other people off is like higher for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um, but so for me, it's less about the why and more about like, why do I care so much?
Yeah.
And undoing that connection. So for
Yeah.
me, the connection is that uh I am only a worthy individual if I am successful according to the rules of success that
Mhm.
were stated to me growing up. And those rules that are coming from, for instance, like my parents, are very different from my own rules for myself.
Yeah,
And so
of
that's
course.
a constant struggle. So I think the key is like understanding that it becomes hardwiring, right? Like
Yeah.
it becomes like you don't even realize it. Like, why do I not do this thing that I truly want? Well, it's because I feel guilty that I'm not doing this other thing that somebody told me is the right thing to
Yeah.
do for me.
Yeah, I've kind of this time. I know it's a little bit of an odd comparison, but when I
Hmm.
first started smoking weed, my dad is a big. He hates it. He's like, if you smoke weed, you're a bad person. Like it's just very black and white to him. He's like, no,
Yeah.
not a thing you do. Um, but over time, my approach to it has always been be very honest and also joke about it. Like if it then that
Mm,
making it lighthearted and making it so that it's not something that's like secretive or you're like it's such a touchy subject. When he was here a long time ago, or when he was visiting me, I was like, hey, you want to you want we can go upstairs and I'll roll one for us if you want. Just like haha. And he's like, yeah, you know what would happen if you did that. I was like, I know. I'm just saying it anyways. So, but the point
what
I'm
would happen?
oh, he'd kick my ass. Um,
Okay.
he would he'd be like, you know better than to do that. I was like, I know I do, but I'm still gonna joke about it. So that I'm still doing what I want to do. And it's that, and that's kind of the point I want to make here is it's getting to that comfortability of being okay that you're not going to agree even with the people that you may love and people that like are in part of your family. It's just having that confidence to disagree, that confidence to be able
Yeah.
to disagree, and whether they're upset about it or not, that's their prerogative.
Yeah.
If you know in your heart that you're not doing anything to hurt anybody and you're kind of just living your life and you're not hurting yourself even. Like I could see it if my dad doesn't like it because I've turned into some stoner who doesn't work and does all that stuff. Yeah, by all
Yeah.
means, I would hope you would say something or for anything like that. But it's that motion, it's that notive that like you are just living how you want to live, and somebody else may not be okay with that, but it's okay for them not to be okay with it because they have their own wants and wills too. So it's like it's coming to that
Yeah.
conclusion. And
And I
again,
think
I don't.
that's where it's tricky because it's like that cycle,
Yeah,
which again, I am really grateful that Jeanette wrote this book because
absolutely.
it shows us an example of somebody who has dealt with this to a very extreme level and has processed that and is sort of moving forward while processing it. But I also think like when you're stuck in that, so yes, like having the confidence to to be like, I'm gonna do what I do regardless
Hmm.
of what you think. But then part of the issue might be that you don't have confidence or self-esteem
Yes. Yeah.
because you've been told that you suck from a very early age.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah. Which is why I don't
so
wanna discount anybody's feelings. Like, I'm not trying to come in here and be like,
yeah.
I figured it out, because I definitely did not. It's just that that's I thought of that as, like, the ultimate goal for that, is
Yeah,
to have that
absolutely.
confidence in the ability to do what you wanna do, even because it was scary for me to tell my dad I did those things. But at the
Yeah,
same time, weeks went by, months went by, and I'm still good, and he still talks to me, and, like, it wasn't easy because I
yeah,
know he was gonna be mad, and I know he wasn't gonna be
yeah.
happy with the situation, but it's like, what is he gonna do? You know? And it's either
He
and
does
then it's
still
on him.
talk to you. What if you had
He
a
does.
parent who stopped talking to you?
That is, yeah, that's something that I don't, that's a different level, and I mean, I even wrote that down, like, for our,
Yeah.
are there any quotes that stood out to you? The one was, "P.S. Send fridge money."
Oh
That, because
gosh. Oh my
mom was
god.
threatening her, that and calling her horrible names and telling her how much of a piece of shit she was, and like saying that she's disowned her. And then at the end she goes, "P.S. Send fridge money." Like, I couldn't imagine dealing with somebody like that. I could not imagine.
Or her grandma, like, the
Oh
how
yeah.
she kept calling her and then calling her name, like,
Oh
oh
my
my
god.
gosh,
I
it's
would have
like
hung up on that bitch like nothing. I would have been like, "Goodbye, grandma. Like, get out of here. Who do you think you
this is
are?"
again, like, guilt tripping to the nth level.
And
So,
the thing was that she
yeah,
fucking put up with it. I
yeah.
cannot believe how she put up with that.
It's a weird, like that's what so maybe we can unpack this a little bit, but
Please.
clearly this book is about family and those relationships and then also yourself, right?
Yes.
So I didn't think about it in this way before, but again, a topic that's very interesting to me and very applicable to my life. But it's like you simultaneously have that love with your family, like with your parents, with your
The
relatives, with your
respect.
siblings, yeah. But then it's juxtaposed with all of these challenges and these tensions. And so, like, how do you navigate? I felt like for her, and this is kind of interestingly clear to me as well throughout the book, is that mm, she felt close to her family even though all of this was going on. So it's kind of like trying to maintain that closeness and trying to continue to do your duty or your responsibility towards your
Mhm.
family while also trying to live or even just think about life on your own terms.
Yeah. But that was also part of the problem, though, too, is because she was so isolated. And even any of the outside role models for the longest time were not good ones. Producer Dan Schneider was not a good person, very abusive.
Yeah,
Her first boyfriend was a drunk.
yeah,
Like, it wasn't a good
yeah.
area for her to even have that ability to have good influence and
It sounds
an
like
idea of.
she and Miranda got along.
Yeah, Miranda was probably a very good person to have on her side, and like it was a way for her to be a child at some point and get the idea of what's normal and what's not. But at the same time, her mom was still controlling everything. Her mom showered her at the age of 16. Like,
That's
what?
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, it killed me hearing that. I was like, "Geez,
Yeah.
Louise, this poor woman." Ugh, I couldn't imagine. But no,
Yeah. Again, it's like to the extreme level that
yeah.
yeah.
I do have a
Yeah.
question for you though, because like again,
Hmm.
I didn't know like I kind of feel bad about my analogy that I gave of like this is the easy scenario
Please.
of why do I
No,
feel
no.
bad?
Yeah.
Because like what I grew up with and having a stern dad doesn't necessarily equate to like I've had my fair share of issues, but this was like making that assumption and making that um, that conversation. Like, by all means, I didn't talk to my mom for like 4 years. I
Mm.
had my issues. So making the comparison of like my dad to any of this is like, it's kind of, I don't know, it belittles it to some extent. So and you seem to have some more of a personal approach to um, kind of how this kind of transpired, of having a parent telling you how you should rule your life moving forward. Um, are there any pieces that you've kind of come to terms with, or any methods that you found that have helped you feel a little bit better about your own decisions as you move forward?
You mean from this book?
Just from the book or in life, like whether it because like I mean, this book can only be so introspective and helpful. You've been working on this for a while, so it's kind of stems in the same vein of what she was going through. So, um, any knowledge in that area?
It, it's a, I would say it's just like it's a constant thing that keeps
Interesting.
popping up. So when I think I've made some headway, it's like, a couple months later, like, oh, okay, wait,
Now,
actually, I have,
what does that
yeah.
though? Like, what brings you back?
Um,
And stop me if I'm asking too personal of questions.
yeah, no, 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 that's okay. I think so. You know how towards the end in the book, she says, like, I, she kind of conjectures what it would be like if her mom were still alive. And
Hmm.
maybe she would come to terms with, letting Jennette live her own life and, supporting her in the things that she wants to do and backing off on sort of like, calorie restrictions and all of those things that are unhealthy. Um, but what she says is that that wouldn't be the case. I mean, she would continue to do what she had always done.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very interesting topic. Mutual growth that happens between parents and children. So the parents teach their children, but then the children also teach their parents. And it's
Hmm.
a two-way street, especially as you get older, I feel like. And there are still, I think, remnants of how, for instance, like if I go home to visit family, I might get, like last time, a recent time, I got lectured about life,
Nice. Nice.
and it was in a way that did not make me feel good.
Of course not.
Um, and I tried to, handle it to the best of my ability, but it made an impression on me that lasted beyond a couple of weeks.
Of
And so
course.
that showed its head later. And it kind of echoed those themes of feeling like worthless, like I haven't done anything with my life, that my
Yeah.
worth is dependent on these things that I need to accomplish that are on
Yeah.
some list, a checklist. Um, so what puts me back in that headspace is having those types of interactions. Like they still happen sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's like scratching open a almost healed, like a scab
Yeah,
or something. Like it's just coming back open. You're like,
yeah,
fuck. I've tried so hard to
yeah.
not like to get so far, and then you're just opening it back up again. Um,
Yeah. So I had
but if
like I had a coaching session about that, and I actually looked at that this morning because I thought about it when thinking about reflecting on this book.
hmm.
And some of the things that came up there were a couple like themes in my life that have come up a lot are this idea of freedom versus feeling constrained or
Sure.
controlled.
Hmm.
Not being my full self, like always kind of changing myself to accommodate others.
Hmm.
Um, and this idea that my worth as an individual is based on some set of accomplishments and following through with them. Otherwise,
Hmm.
I'm like a worthless idiot or a loser.
Well, you're not. I hope you
That's a
know that.
conditioning. Well, that's an example of conditioning, right?
I don't like that you just said
Or
well to that comment.
I know my coach has this problem. He's like, "Why are you?" I'd say something, and he'd be like, "Why are you? Why are you laughing right now? This is serious. Why are you laughing?" I'm like, "Ha ha ha ha!"
You don't take compliments well, do you?
No, I don't.
I didn't think so.
And then this other
And she
thing, which I
moves
think
on.
is interesting, is is being too. I know, is being too nice.
Yeah,
So like,
no, I get it.
why is somebody too nice, right? Like, why are you? Because you feel like you need to accommodate other people to have their approval. So that's like the back burner of, I think that you could be
See,
a kind individual and nice, but too nice, too accommodating, right?
yeah.
Um,
I think it might also
yeah.
play into because like I also find myself doing things uh in like for other people before myself. I think it's more of just I'd rather take the brunt or take the hit, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to
Mhm.
have to deal with other people doing that, you know.
What's an
So,
example? Huh.
um, I don't know, just anything. Like if some like if from small things to being like in an argument. In an argument, I'm quicker if I did something wrong or like and I think somebody else also played a part in it, but they're very defensive about their side of it, I'd rather just go, "Fine, whatever, my fault, I'll deal with it." Like it's so
Mm,
much easier for me to just take the brunt of
yeah.
everything so that they can just move on and we don't have to have this conversation anymore
Yeah.
and just like kind of go for it and just
Yeah.
figure it out on my side and see what I could do differently next time to maneuver it because I have my own ability to control myself. I can't control other people. So
That
knowing what
that
I
goes
know,
back to your previous question, and I think that's really wise because, first of all, in this example, a lot of arguments or things or discussions back and forth are just a waste of time anyway, and it becomes like an ego battle. That's not worth like it
yeah, exactly.
it's meaningless, right?
Yep.
And then secondly, you had asked earlier about, oh, what was the question? It had something to do with, oh, why does somebody else um, think a certain thing about you? And I was saying that it doesn't matter why, it just matters like to eliminate that conditioning.
Yeah.
So what you just said is like you can control yourself, but you can't control others. I think that's really an important takeaway. Like for Jennette, for instance, no matter what she does, and this is like again like instilled in her at such an early age, which I think is that plus the health stuff is too too over the top. But um, no matter what she does, her mom like she can't her mom's not gonna be satisfied.
Hmm.
She's always gonna want things, keep wanting things a particular way, and it's not gonna stop.
Hmm.
So
Any pushback that Jeanette would give is going to be like combated with something that her mom wants differently.
yeah, and
Because like
it'll go
obviously they
on and
want two
on.
totally different things, and that's something that like she knew from the beginning, but like also didn't come to terms with. Of like you said,
Well,
I didn't
she
like
was
act.
young.
Yeah, she didn't know what to do. Like, and she thought that like that was just how it worked. Like maybe this is what it means to like something is to hate it. You know. So sadly enough, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's funny because like I feel like it's sadly as it is, or as sad as it is, the title of the book is the it's kind of like it's the reason why she was able to be okay. Um, the only instance where she was able to move on from this was to not have that constant threat or that constant like pressure going. So the best thing that could have
Yeah.
happened for her was to break contact completely with her mother, and doing so in a way that her mom had no say about. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
it's a very tough
What?
one.
Yeah. If we take that like back back down a couple notches to maybe, our lives, how like what are some ideas for how we can deal with or manage those types of relationships that might exist in our lives where you have like certain people who think that you should be doing something and maybe there's strong bonds there, but it's kind of those bonds are also kind of holding you back from being yourself. I'm sure you've been in situations like that as well.
Yeah, yes and no. I don't know if I'm the best to talk about something like this. A lot of
Mhm.
my parents have been relatively supportive, and anybody that was around me that told me, I think, I wonder. I definitely had the feeling like, because imposter syndrome's a thing that I have right now, and like looking around to people around me that are doing the same thing, that are doing it better, or at least in my mind better.
Mhm.
That's what I have to compare to, and then that makes me feel like shit. But I don't think I've ever really had like had something that like was my career path or things that I wanted to do. I didn't really have anybody other than like fellow students thinking I'm weird for making videos in my room. Um, and even still, I don't even know if anybody did, because like I just put it in my mind
Mhm.
that I was like, this is a weird thing to
Yeah.
do, so everybody's gonna think I'm weird. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the extent. So I don't know how much I can actually touch on that, other than again,
Mhm.
it's being okay, like at least from a normal standpoint, if it's like a smaller part of your life that you're trying to figure out, from my opinion or my experience so far, is just being okay with being a little bit uncomfortable, and making sure that you just joke about it. I don't know, just like making it as lighthearted and as light as it can be, because it really doesn't matter. Um, their feelings towards you and your feelings towards their feelings. Um,
Mhm.
you're gonna do what you want to do, and if you don't, then you're kind of you're cheating yourself. And it sucks that there are people out there that are gonna kind of give you a motive to push you in a certain way, but um, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's
I mean, it's a balance, right? Because sometimes it's good, like you as a child or as a young adult, we can be rudderless or like we don't have the discipline, right? So
Mhm.
it's there are in my and for me there are definitely a lot of pros, right, in terms of like being taught discipline, how to work hard, work
Of
ethic
course,
at a
of
young
course.
age. um and as you become your own person, you start to develop your own or get a sense of like your own likes and dislikes. And then it's like the courage to listen to it, the courage to follow through with it. I think physical space is really important. Where if you are spending a lot of time around uh, people who may contribute to like confusion or people who are clearly trying to sway you in a direction that you don't think
Mhm.
as supportive of where you want to go, that
Of course.
being around that energy too much, it's just hard. Like
Gonna
I
hold
feel
you
like physical
to.
space, yeah, um, yeah, physical space is really important. For me,
Mhm.
I've used like I have, a life coach. You've met him,
Mhm.
but that's one of my tools that has helped me a lot during times where I'm like just I like encounter a knot or something. Like oh, I feel like going down a bad tunnel. Then
Mhm.
like somebody I trust to snap me out of it. But I think that that's helpful.
Having
Yeah.
an outside perspective that is objective and
Yes.
away from people that are.
And also having a yaysayer. Like,
Yeah,
well, really though, right? Having a
yeah.
yaysayer. Like,
Somebody
there's
go
too
like, "Go
many
for it.
naysayers.
Get it."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like a practical yaysayer, not just somebody who's just like, oh yeah, whatever,
yeah.
oh,
Not a
you're
woo
gonna be
girl.
great at everything. Like, oh. But
Yeah.
like a practical yaysayer, which is why I think that this podcast is really important because there need to be more yaysayers out there.
Mhm.
And whatever we can do to support ourselves and to support our community and other people out there through just reflecting on these and coming away with insights, even talking about our own lives, um, I think it's really helpful.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful way to end this whole thing, if you'd like. Unless you got other things to talk about, I think that was a wonderful way to spice up the end, or like wrap up the end of our little discussion here about
Let's do
Jennette
it.
McCurdy's beautiful book. All right, so final thing to do is always, let's do takeaways and wrap ups. Would you recommend this book, Priya,
Yes,
and why?
I would recommend it if for people who are okay with the heaviness.
Yeah, that was gonna be my comment too. It's like it's a very good book if you want a very raw and authentic approach to somebody's life, and
Yeah.
seeing like a celebrity as they were, and moving through a bunch of mental health issues, and their discovery through that. It's a very enticing book, very very much
You know
so.
what it makes me think is I did mention earlier, like, imagine all the other stories that exist that we just don't know about, like,
Yeah, like
people's
pertaining to
lives.
what
What are
though?
they like?
Oh yeah yeah yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
like
And
celebrities, for instance. Like, you imagine Britney Spears writing a memoir, right?
true.
Her
I wonder if that would be very interesting. All right, we're
yeah.
gonna petition for that one. Brittany, write a
Mhm.
story, please, so we can learn
Mhm.
about you and see what all went down. I wonder if
Yeah.
she actually is. I feel like she, you
Yeah.
never know. You never
But
know.
imagine, like, all the others, so even the people who are mentioned in Jeanette's book, like a Miranda or like a who do you think was the person who didn't want her to direct on the set
That's
of
a good
Sam and Cat?
question. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Like I was thinking
I
that
was
too.
like, was it Ariana Grande?
There's
Like,
no way
who
she cared.
yeah.
There's no way Ariana cared
But
about
who
that.
had that big of an influence, to be like, "I'm gonna leave the show
That's what I
if she
mean.
directs." Yeah.
That's so like maybe it was her. Maybe it was Ariana and she was like,
Yeah.
I'm out if she does this. Why would she care?
I don't know. Or maybe, like,
Yeah.
her mom. Like, I really don't know.
What
I have
if?
no
What if? Yeah.
like, the
Ooh.
mothers, like, if you think about I don't watch these shows because it's, like, all drama, but, like, Dance Moms and that type of thing,
Mhm.
that's, like I feel like that's kinda like this, right? The moms get really involved, and then it's
Uh-huh.
sort of like a battle between the moms and, like, whose kid is gonna be again, it's similar in, like, an Asian tiger culture, right? Like, yeah, the parents were like, "Oh, my kid went to this school, and your kid, better than my kid did this," like, always kinda
Yeah.
comparing children. Um,
I'm just trying to I pulled up the cast here and nobody on this looks like they'd be a person to like I don't know, to do
cast or
that.
crew, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Crew could also be a thing. Um
But the crew would have to be important enough that they would, you
Yeah,
know
like one of the story writers or something that just got a little bit up like butt hurt because a girl was gonna write the next or direct the next one because he didn't get the
Yeah.
chance. And stupid.
Yeah,
Ugh.
something like
Yeah, I don't
that.
know. I'd love to know. I'd love to know. If I ever meet Jeanette, I'll ask her for you, and you do the same.
Oh,
How's that sound?
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
Okay. No, criteria for whether or not it gets the Yeasayer stamp of approval. Number one, a depiction of overcoming struggle. The whole book, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that's a
Okay.
5 out of 5. I would say the
Yeah.
first well, the whole thing is out of 5. I would say the
Mm.
first one, like, would I what was the first one again? The first question we just answered and then got on a tangent?
Would you recommend this book and why?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
That
get
one
into
to
the.
me is like if you're able to handle it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If you're able to handle this kind of thing, yes, absolutely. But so then, depiction of overcoming struggle, yes. New way of looking at slash approaching life.
Hmm.
Post, um, post podcast, yes, I would say.
Post-podcast, yes. It's the reflections that bring that. What is for you, what is that? What is the new way of looking at or approaching life?
Um, eh, Identifying. I think it was more of the idea of identifying. I wrote identifying the movements we are making in our lives to I must use identify again. Identify what may be guiding us in different directions that we may not be aware of. So just kind of
Mhm.
being cognizant or aware of the different influences in our lives, and
Mhm.
knowing which ones to take seriously and which ones not to, based on what it is that you want. And it doesn't mean you can have to cut people off, but it also means that you can yeah, people's opinions can be on different tier levels, you know?
Yeah. I had a career coach for a bit, and she talked about it as like creating a filter bubble around you, or like a
Mhm,
curtain where you
mhm.
listen to what other people have to say or their feedback, but you put a filter on everything.
Yeah, whether or not you take it to heart.
I have to practice that. Yep.
Okay, there you go. There's a little
Hmm.
Yeasayers practice for you for next week.
Yeah.
You better have it figured out by next week, Priya. If not, I'm gonna be
Oh,
upset.
yeah,
So
it'll be done. Don't worry.
figure out your life in 1 week. Try, you know?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. I got
Alright.
it.
Causes self-reflection. Does this book
Oh,
cause
yeah.
self-reflection? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it do. Is it engaging? Does it leave a lasting impression? Is it memorable?
I will not forget this.
I won't either. Jeez
I
Louise.
probably this is probably the book that I remember most. I was thinking about this too and like why? Because I am not one to remember plots or facts. Like my memory and retention for those things is really poor. But this
Same.
book, like the way that it's written, I guess the way that she reads it, it's like the unfolding of a story. And she's a very good writer because I noticed like she would present certain things in a way that was like screenwriting where you're like drops a dangles a carrot, and then you have to keep listening or
Mhm.
keep reading to figure out what that carrot is, and the whole book is like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Kind of
Yeah.
like a
It just keeps
suspense
stringing you
written.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a lot of the I was feeling the same amount of anxiety that she was. Well, not the same, but yeah, I was feeling the anxiety. I felt how she felt. I knew what it meant. Oh my god. I'm just belittling the shit out of everybody's emotions today, aren't I? Jeez
No,
Louise.
not at all.
Oh my
I
god.
don't care about
Uh,
yeah, I don't
you
look
don't
at things
care?
that way.
Oh, good.
Well, I
I'm just
think
joking too.
yeah, anyway, moving on.
Moving on. What were you thinking? You think that what?
So, uh, I honestly think that everybody takes away, different things from their experiences or from reading this book, for instance. And I think that
Yeah,
every takeaway is valid to me.
sure. Appreciate that. Yeah, I can appreciate
Yeah.
that. All right. So, did you walk away feeling empowered?
I don't know about empowered.
Yeah, I
I
don't know
still
about
feel the
empowered either.
heaviness.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those like more. Yeah, it's not an empowering
Eh,
book, or maybe
no.
at least not for some, like not myself, or at least I didn't come out empowered.
Yeah.
Hmm. Sorry, Jeanette. You
Hmm.
got a 4 out of 5.
I think it was like a little bit of a departure from, the traditional, if we have one as of now, the traditional Yeasayers book, but I think it was a good departure. So
Hmm.
I would definitely recommend listening to the book again if one has the propensity to do that, but or the ability to sort of like absorb this type of information, this heaviness.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if you're looking for something, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go, do all these things. This doesn't fall into that
No,
category.
it does not. No, no, not at all.
It's more of
Okay.
like the accurate depiction of struggle and overcoming struggle and reflecting, self-reflection,
Absolutely.
learning about the influences and kind of like emotional and physical constraints that and controlling factors that other people put on us. It kind of helps to become hyper aware of that.
Hmm.
But I would say it's focused on that versus like the empowering part of it.
Yeah. No, completely agree. 100%.
Yeah.
Rad. Well, Priya, this has been great. Thanks for
This has been
thanks for going a little deep with me for a while. Like, sorry if I asked too
no,
many
no, no, no.
deep, deep,
Feel
deep
free.
questions.
That's what the podcast is for. Also, why did you bring this book to us in the beginning? I know
Uh,
that you had heard that it was out, but just before we end, I wanted to hear more about that.
the reason I brought this book because on my other podcast or other show I do, we saw that it was a big thing in the pop
Yeah.
culture community, so we put it on the show, and then I just kind of sat with that. Like I know who Jennette McCurdy is. I grew up with her as Sam on
Mm,
iCarly, and um, just like getting the slight insight from what people were talking about this book in the news. It just seemed like something that would be uh, an important read to like it's
yeah.
something not to scoff at, you know. It's a true and really authentic story that, you know, that was kind of the vibe we were going for, is authentic stories and upbringings and understanding how people get
Mhm.
successful, whether it be a good way or a bad way.
Mhm.
um
Yeah.
so it just seemed like something that was topical, and we, you know, we could be of the first group to really analyze
Yeah.
this and get be a part of that understanding of life a little bit right off the bat.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for bringing this to us. Yeah. You think you kind of have a sense of somebody, but the TV personality is very different from the real person and what they're
Yeah, I
going through.
know. Sam used to eat a lot of food on camera. I always, you know, and
Yeah.
that's really shitty of Dan Schneider, to be honest. Just sit. Well, he was a shitty person to begin with, but you know, this girl is going through a lot of shit, and he goes, "Eat." She goes, "I hate you."
Yeah. I can't like is it going to be you'll never watch an episode of any of her shows
And not
from
think
back in the
about
day in the
this.
same way again.
No,
Yeah.
never. I will never. I'll
That's what
see
I
the
was
dead in
thinking. I'm
her
like, if I'm
eyes.
watching, right, if I'm watching like, iCarly or Sam and Cat, and I see the episode with the box, I'm gonna be
Mhm.
like,
Oh, yeah. Be like, "She
I
hated this episode. She hated."
know.
Oh, god damn. I kinda wanna watch that just for the sake of seeing how she
I
just,
pulled
like,
it up on
does not.
YouTube
Did
yesterday.
you? Does she look like she doesn't give a shit? She's like, "I hate this." Or was she
Well,
pretty good about it?
I think I mean, that's the thing where, like, if you didn't know the background, if she didn't talk about it, if she didn't go public with the background and her perspective, you wouldn't know.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I think she was very good, as an act. Like, she was able to do all of that, and you
Mhm.
would never know. So she had that skill,
Mhm.
that's what makes it difficult. Like, what if she were just shitty? Then okay, like, what can you do about it? But her mom pushed her and she was able to deliver. So that makes it even harder. She's actually
Yeah.
doing it well.
Yeah, yeah. For real.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
my
And thank
co-host.
everybody that was listening, my co-host, to you
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you,
We're just
everybody.
gonna thank everybody. Yeah, thank you. Round of applause for everybody listening. If you got this far, like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. And what do we want? Or do we know what we're gonna listen to or read for next week or next episode? Do we know that yet? Or
I
are we gonna talk
suppose
about
it's
that?
a surprise. I suppose
Oh,
it's a surprise.
ooh,
We do
all
not
right.
yet know.
Well,
Yeah.
everybody, get ready for that surprise, and just make sure you tune back in next week.
Yes. All right. Peace
All
out,
right, everybody.
Yeasayers.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.